Welcome back to Because We Love You. It is a new year. It's 2025, and Jade and I are just excited to be back with you all and just sharing our experiences.
To show our faces.
Yeah.
So,
hi, we're back.
You can still just listen to these voices of ours. But now we have some. We're gonna let you see the magic too.
That's right. the magic behind the scenes.
It's a lot though. I mean, you should see how frumpy I looked some episodes.
Yeah, it was nice when no one could see us.
Yeah, we were talking about like real deep stuff, but I looked like I had been through some things.
Yeah, cuddled up in sweats on a lounger. It was pretty great.
But now this is good too.
Yes, this is good too.
We hope you've had great holidays and that you're ready to like jump in the new year.
Yeah.
With lots of expectation.
Yeah, I mean, I think New Year's feels exciting, but can also feel hard because there's a lot of pressure to like pick a goal, do something great. What's this year going to hold for you? And we don't want it to feel like that. We don't want it to feel bad for sure. But we thought we would start by reflecting on our 75-day challenge. So many of you know this. Woo, and did it. Woohoo, even more exciting.
Even if you just did a portion of it.
That's
Woohoo!
Right. However many days you did, you're that many days better.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It was hard.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Interesting, hard. We learned a lot. Long. 75 days is a lot of days. Yeah. For sure.
I didn't realize. And
we didn't even do the hardest version, let's be clear. So people who do that, I am like so amazed by them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but it was hard enough.
Yeah.
It was hard enough to get started. I mean, maybe we've talked about this recently. It's like when you do hard things, they get easier. So then you have to keep doing harder things. So I don't know, Stacy Lynn, maybe in the next year, we may have to up our ante.
Okay. I mean, certainly we're going to have to do something more difficult, but what is that going to be? Oh my goodness.
There were so many things though that I gathered, learned that we learned about ourselves, during this time, and that we saw connections, success stories that we heard from you guys. We had this little support group, kind of accountability tracker, and so many of you guys, you didn't do something, and then you would post that you did do something, and we encouraged each other, and that was it was nice to see everybody kind of come together.
Yeah, for sure. So over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about several lessons we learned, and so today we're going to start with the first one. And this is something that for me kind of stood out over the course of the challenge, and I kept coming across quotes. This is similar to something that our trainer says, but I've also come across some other quotes recently. And essentially, the idea is this. So it's not what you do occasionally that matters. It's what you do consistently. I've also seen it kind of stated this way, that you are not your goals, you are your habits. Like, a lot of us have goals. And we could share those goals and they could be, the same, but I know in a book I was reading recently, it said winners and losers both have goals, which kind of was like, oh, right? That's a tough one to hear. Like, it's not just having a goal, it's what you're doing consistently that makes you who you are. And so for me, certainly that was one of the biggest things that just kept standing out, was like, I just need to pick things and do things that I can do consistently, and that's going to make me who I am.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the idea that when you think about your goals, it's not even exactly what you do. It's just that you do something and you do it consistently. You do it daily. And it kind of like, because if you're trying to get in shape or if you're trying to eat better, there's so many plans. There's so if you're trying to read more, but it's like, I came across something the other day, and it was like reading just 10 pages a day is 15 books a year.
Yeah.
That's a lot of, and
it's so doable.
10 pages a day, 15 books. So it's the consistency, what you're doing daily when you look at that and how much time it takes. It's not that much.
And it adds up.
But that's a big outcome. If you say I read 15 books, that's good. Now we have, I know you, Miss Stacy Lynn over there. What was your maximum reading books?
I don't know. I didn't have a reading goal this year, so I didn't keep track of how many books I read. But I think 1 year I did 50.
50.
Yeah.
So that's that. And consistently, that would only, well, okay, no. So if 15,
a lot of minutes a day.
20, oh, yeah, that was pretty hard.
Yeah. But it's all right. I don't do it every year.
But in 75 days, we had multiple things that we encourage people to do.
So in case people didn't do the challenge or kind of forget, let's remind them what we were up to.
Goodness.
75 days because we love you challenge.
Yes. Okay. I will start with 10 minutes of, was it 10 minutes of meditation, prayer?
5 minutes. Yeah. 5 minutes of prayer, meditation, 10 minutes of walking. Outside. And 30 minutes of exercise. Yep.
And an intentional conversation
one
daily.
Intentional conversation every day. And then eating healthy. It was a healthy eating plan of your choice.
What was your hardest to be consistent
in? I would say eating is always the hardest one for me. So, I didn't do kind of any sweet tea, which I love, that kind of thing, eating. I'm heavily driven by food. I love it. It's a motivator for me. It's a reward. Yeah. That was hard for me. What about you?
Clearly, food is where I get a lot of my pleasure from. So that was hard. And I don't think that I was quite as healthy as you. We left this range
a little too open. We did learn that lesson.
Yes, kind of so I don't know that I was quite as strict as you were. But I did it was hard. The exercise was a big change for me, but I did it. And I also, even during this time, signed up for the gym with you and started with a personal trainer. Yep. And it really, I'm starting to see gains in that, in mood, in strength, and so, but the 75-day challenge, I think, was a pusher to that. But it is hard for me. It's hard whenever you work. You're there at 6 and you don't get off till 6, at least 4 days a week.
Gosh, that's so hard.
And I'm there. I have to be there. There's nothing that I can do. So that was definitely, there were a lot of dark nights that I was walking.
You were walking outside. It's hard. And I exercise pretty regularly, but every day, 30 minutes every day. That was the hard part because I definitely don't do that. And I don't think you need to. That's not something I'm sticking to now. Every day, I'm certainly doing it regularly, but 7 days a week for 75 days is hard.
How would you define consistency?
Yeah. So we were talking about this a little bit before and what does that look like? I think it's just any time in this context when we're thinking about habits and, health and wellness and things like that. I think it's when you're doing something regularly, I would say close to daily, but, often over a long period of time. I think that's the key part is it's not, I did this for, a couple weeks or whatever it may be. When I think of consistency now, I think the lesson for me is I have been thinking that as, no, we're talking long term. We're talking years. We're talking about, committing to something and doing it regularly for years, not days.
I think the interesting, cool part about that is when you truly are consistent, isn't there so much more grace when there is a day where you don't do it? Because you're I consistently, this is what I want to do. These are my goals. Yep. These are my desires. This is but, oh man, the sheets felt really good today. We had intended on walking.
Yeah.
But my Lola blanket, which is this luxury blanket, I'm going to put a plug in. Very, very nice. And it was just all around me. And, we just didn't quite get here. And that's okay. It's okay. Because I felt tomorrow I'm going to get back up and do what I've been consistently doing.
That's right. And yesterday we did it and the day before we did it. And it's okay to take a day off for sure. And that's something else I learned too is it's not about being perfect. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency. And if you have this idea that you need to be perfect, you're going to fall off track and then feel bad. And that's what the other thing I like about this quote of it's not what you do occasionally that matters. It's what you do consistently is we can think of it in a bad way. You don't go to the gym consistently and then you feel guilty about that. But for me, it's more about the reverse of that. If you've built in some healthy habits that you're consistently doing, when you do go off track or even just indulge in pleasures, which we should all be doing, it's not a big deal to skip a day or two or a few at the gym. It's not a big deal to have a night to go out and have a couple drinks with friends. It's not a big deal to eat cookies over the holidays. And you shouldn't feel guilty about that, because those are the things you're doing occasionally. They don't define you, and they're not necessarily bad to do if you're doing them only occasionally, right? But when you do the other stuff consistently, then you don't have to feel bad, or you shouldn't feel bad about doing that stuff sometimes.
Yeah. And I love too the idea of consistency. Oh gosh, me and words. But I just think that consistency is what brings about growth and production and productivity. And it reminds me of, I was reading an article in Today, and it had a professor, Troy Smith from the University of Nebraska College of Business. And he had done this study with some of the students. And basically, when they had been presented with hard, stressful tasks consistently rather than intermittently or fluctuating, like, oh, well, I only gave them like 2 hard tasks this week or however long. Those students that had consistently hard stressors and tasks, they had a better well-being, and they outperformed their other students and partners. And that was encouraging to me, because I think that goes, with that goes in your work, that goes with reading, that goes with, intentional conversations, which we had. Like when you consistently have those, you grow more. You grow to be a better communicator, right?
And you see results, right? Those, I think, habits and things you do consistently compound, and then, you see big change, which feels good.
Yeah, it reminds, like, even, I think this is super huge, even with our kids, like what we do, what they see us do consistently, and what we do with them. It really can impact their futures and making it normal to talk about their day, like to really go into like, how is your day? And then they're going to grow they're going to grow to expect that, oh no, you don't talk to your parents like this. I'm like,
that's just what we do.
That's how we do it. We get down and dirty.
Down and dirty, whatever that means.
I have a little side piece.
Buckle up, folks. Here we go with Jade's side piece.
When I'm being videoed, I feel this. It's harder to say the down and dirty stuff.
Oh yeah,
I feel like it's intrusive.
I
feel like the eyes are on me. Yeah, like when it's just my voice, I'm like ready to
crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I don't know. Maybe I'll warm up to these cameras.
Yeah, well, we'll be here for another 10 minutes, and that will go out the window. But I love that. So one thing that you and I were talking a little bit about is, like, why is it so freaking hard to build new habits? Like, why is it hard to be consistent? And one thing that we kind of came across and it reminded me of was that book by James Clear, Atomic Habits. A lot of people have read this. It's a pretty popular book in like leadership and business and different circles like that, psychology. And it took us back to this idea of identity-based habit formation, the idea that habits become part of who you are. And so I think that was another important lesson that we learned, and it reminded us to kind of go back to this theory that he has.
Who are you? Who?
No, I don't know what you're talking about, but you're already
oh my gosh, CSI.
Oh.
But like, that's like,
I don't watch CSI. I'm too scared.
Oh yeah, that's right. Crime scene investigation. This was like the throwback one. But yeah, I used to be very addicted to it, but that was their theme song. And I think it really relates to this because maybe the question is not where you want to go, but who do you want to be? Who are you?
I love that.
Who are you, Stacy Lynn?
Well, let's find out.
Okay.
3 layers. Okay. So this identity-based habit formation, essentially, he talks about this idea that there are 3 layers of behavior change. And the first one is change we can change our outcomes. So this tends to be pretty practical, like concrete things we can change. Things like, I want to lose this many pounds, or I want to read this many books. I want to, XYZ, whatever it is.
These are easy to list.
Easy to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can.
And actually some of them probably reasonable to do, but I think maintaining them over time is the problem when we focus on outcome, right? Like if you change your diet or your exercise routine to lose 10 pounds and you lose 10 pounds, what's going to happen? You're probably going to just go back to what you were before, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
when
gradually.
You're not ready to consistently do it.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of, side note, the problem maybe with like New Year's resolutions and goal, like setting a yearly goal, things like that, is you're not thinking long term. Anyway,
I like that.
Another side piece.
No, it's big. It's big, especially like even with patients when they have an outcome that they want to reach, an A1C, a sugar goal, or whatever. I'm like, but you need to create a lifestyle, not just like you're going to be like, my favorite drink is Dr. Pepper, and if you stop drinking those cold turkey and never go back to, eventually you're going to say, screw my A1C. I would rather have a Dr. Pepper instead of Yeah.
Or you get to the goal of whatever you want your A1C to be, and then you go back to drinking Dr. Pepper, and then it goes back up again, and then you have to drop, like it kind of leads to this up and down effect, which is not what we want. We want more of a consistent thing. So certainly having outcomes you want to reach, or having goals is not bad, but if that's the focus, I think that's hard, was his point. So the second one is change of process. And this is kind of change of habits, as we've been calling them, but also what he calls systems. Like what are the systems in place, that schedules and things that you do regularly. But the important part was the third level, which is a change in identity. And of course, identity has more to do with our beliefs and our values. And so he says change can happen at all three levels, and it's not that any level is good or bad. But in his book, Atomic Habits, focuses on this idea that we need to think about the direction of change, and that most of us start with changing outcomes and move or hope that is going to move us towards a change in identity. Like if I lose 10 pounds by working out, then maybe I'll become, an exerciser, person who works out. I'll be, someone who goes to the gym. But the proposal is that we should flip that, which I really like, and think about who is it that we want to be, not the goals we want to reach. So, some examples in the book were like, the goal is not to read so many books. The goal is to become a reader. And it sounds like just semantics, like a different way to say it, but it's truly different in the sense that like you're thinking about the person you want to become, not I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to become a runner. Right. So you're thinking about it and talking about it in a way that's related to who you are. And so that change in identity is like super important.
Yeah. And I think it is more, it takes more time to think about who you really want to be. This is something that, I feel like has definitely been a change in myself and my journey with like health. I've seen a lot of like, I don't necessarily right now, I'm trying not to. It's easy to like want to be a certain size or want to read a certain amount of books or want to have this amount of influence or want, whatever followers, wherever we're going, it's easy to do that. But it's like changing that mindset of I also really who I want to be is a strong person who, when I'm 80, can travel. I want to be a healthy person who that I do everything I can do to prevent a stroke, so that I can always be able to use both sides of my body. I want to be an educated person that can hold conversations with many different people. Therefore, that's why I want to consistently read and know what's going on in the world. And it's like, but that gives it, even though it's hard to think about it, and sometimes when the outcomes aren't there, recently did the trainer, did all these things, and the scales don't necessarily show what I want, but I feel better and I'm reaching my goals and I'm consistently doing something. Therefore, I think we have to like rest in the power of I'm just going to do this because it's who I want to be. I'm just going to sit here and read this book. Because I want to be a reader. I want to be well-versed. I desire to be the person who knows more, knows what's going on in the world, that's not blinded to that.
Yeah. And I like, that you bring that back to something we were talking about earlier, and probably something we'll expand on, in the coming weeks, but this idea of being so future focused, that it's not just who I want to be today or who I want to be in 2025. It's who I want to be as a person my whole life, right? Like, I want to be a reader now, but I want to be a reader when I'm 70, right? I want to be physically fit now, but I want to be, like you said, physically fit when I'm 65 and can, go to amusement parks or jump in the pool with my kids and grandkids, whatever it may be. And so, it's about identity, and it's about long term.
And you can't start that at 70.
You can't. And that's so good.
That's the power, is like, even, you've seen these things now, like if at 20 people save $1 a day or something, or $1 a week, it would be like millions of dollars, the compounded interest.
Sure.
But I just like that idea. That's what consistency does. It compounds. It gives you compounded interest towards something, so that if you start it today in your 30s, then by the time you are 80s, you reach these goals, and you didn't necessarily have this big drawn out plan. You just did things consistent. Like you said, there's repetition, and I will do this for a long amount of time. And I may not necessarily see any big goals or big outcomes in a year. But I know that year after year after year, this is what this is what will benefit me. And I think we're like, maybe we don't need to have like a New Year's word or goal or list, but maybe we just need to work on consistency and who we want to be. Who
am I going to be this year? Who am I going to be for the next 10 years? And just do that. Just do a lot of that, and just keep showing up. And that, that's something our trainer says, is just like, you showed up. Like, that's like a common thing. And, in the culture of the gym that we go to, is just like, you showed up today. And like, I think that's just the lesson, that just every day, just keep showing up. Like,
when you
just
don't
show
feel
up.
like it,
when you don't feel like
failed,
it,
when you, I mean, certainly I think about, like, I have a lot of motivation. I'll get really passionate about something, and I have all the motivation, and maybe this episode you'll be like, I'm so motivated. But motivation is just the first part. That only,
and it's
like,
temporary.
Opens the iceberg. Consistency is saying, I do not feel like this, but I'm going to the gym. And it's the stair step, these small steps. Motivation is like, I want to do the hardest work of my life. And
today I feel great. Let's go for it. Let's do
all the things. And then you don't come back for 3 weeks because you can't move your legs. You can't move anything. So it's definitely, but replacing that with definitely grace, not guilt. When you miss the stair step.
When it becomes consistent, it's okay to miss some days or to mess up. Absolutely. And I think we were kind of talking about, how do we make it easier, because consistency is hard. So what are some things that work? And one thing we talked about was just like having a schedule, or having things built into your life that it needs to become default. It needs to become automatic. Like, for an example that we read was like having the same thing for breakfast every day. That sounds lame, but it takes away one decision where I'm going to get up and I'm going to have this healthy thing. I'm not going to have to get up and think about, well, what should I eat? Then you see the donuts or the cinnamon roll or whatever. Like, no, I get up and I have, a Greek yogurt and 2 scrambled eggs for breakfast. That's just what I do. And I think when you make things default like that, it's not taking up as much cognitive load of like figuring it out and making decisions. You just do it. It becomes a habit. And for the gym, right? Like, we know which days we go and which days we don't go, and what we lift on those days. And luckily we have someone who tells us that, what we do. But it's like, I know every Monday I get up and I go to the gym before work and we lift legs. And that is what I do. It's not about, am I going to go to the gym tomorrow? Let me decide when I wake up. Because I can tell you on Monday morning, if it were up to me to decide in that moment. Your
motivation's not there on Monday?
Motivation is not there, girl. I want to stay in bed. I don't want to do it. But that's what I do. You get up and you go to the gym and you lift legs on Monday.
You said something earlier, or I don't know that it was on the actual air podcast, but you said we're all consistent in something.
Yeah.
You know, consistency is not necessarily the issue. It's just what you choose to be consistent in. I mean, because we are.
Yeah, I think
we
this
might
is a helpful conversation.
Yeah, we may be. I mean, sometimes we get in ruts, and I'll be honest, like I feel like I'm consistently eating out.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like right now in this part of my life, and we talked about this. I just feel like all I do, I'm just like, nope, I never cook the meal. I never do the thing. We're just on the go. And that's something I'm aiming to change. And I think I want to word it like I want to consistently cook and eat at home, because we know that we can make better food. We can save more money, things of that nature. So consistency is not the issue. It's just what are you choosing to be consistent in?
Yes, for sure. I mean, we hear this all the time. Consistency is hard. Consistency is not hard. Doing hard things consistently is hard.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like we're gonna default to do the easy things consistently if we don't have a plan. And, you know, I have gotten into the habit of I consistently scroll on my phone before bed. And I hate that and it makes me mad. But it's because I haven't picked a book or I don't have something I'm doing for reading right now. And so that becomes the easy default. I'm super consistent at it. I don't miss a night. I can promise you that. Right? So, you know, like,
and I remember a day where you were consistently reading.
Not doing,
at night.
I would never look at my phone before bed.
Yeah. And you were, so I think it's good and bad, but I think it's good because we're being transparent that we're all there are always times where you fall off and you don't do you're consistently working out, but now you're not consistently feeding your mind with good things. So it's just a switch. And then once you get back into that habit, that longevity of making good choices, and part of that is just the knowledge of what good choices are. And so that can be very overwhelming. I mean, something it's like, so I've got to consistently make good meals, and I've got to consistently talk to my kids, and I've got to consistently read my Bible and pray and meditate, and I've got to I mean, I could go on and on and on, and that can just feel
overwhelming.
So we don't want to do that, and you know, you can't do that. So you may have to like choose some things to like say, hey, I'm only going to choose 3 areas where I want to be consistent now.
Like, and they should be the things that are core to who you are and just what's most important about who I want to be, you know. And I think this is a perfect example when we were talking about how like this is the downside of goals, right? Like I had a reading goal of so many books, and so that's why I read every night, which is great, and I did it consistently for a year. But even that didn't make me a reader in the sense of like that's just what I do all the time. It was a goal, and when the goal was met, I stopped. And so it's a great example of like thinking about, you know, is that one of the things that I want to focus on of like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I certainly don't want to be a person who just scrolls on their phone every night. So, you know, also maybe we can be motivated by thinking about the types of people we don't want to be.
Yeah.
When it comes to identity, you know?
So I think, I mean, the basis of this is the 75-day challenge certainly got us thinking about, man, we did this consistently for 75 days. And what part of those things is who we really want to be? You know, do we want to be intentional conversation makers and engagers? And you know, and some things is easier to be consistent on. Like, okay. So, I mean, it's easy for me to ask deep, dark, burning
serious,
questions. It's just, it's just a part, that's a part of me, you know, and that might not be as easy for you, but if it's something you want to do, and if it's somewhere you want to be, and you enjoy those conversations so much, then you need to consistently ask them to people and be in spaces where you're able to be vulnerable. Or whatnot. So, but I think that's the thing right now is who do you want to be? And I mean, the list could go on and on and on. But maybe choose like 2 or 3 ways. Like you, this is a part of what you want for maybe even your family, for yourself, for you and your spouse. And find a way.
That's like a way to do it is one thing for physical health, one thing for your relationships, and one thing for your job or something. You know, everyone can do it in a different way, but maybe you pick one thing in each key area and that's how you do it. But we would definitely encourage you for this year to be thinking about that. Maybe it's controversial, but maybe don't choose a goal or a word or whatever for 2025. Maybe just the thing this year should be to think about who the person is that you want to be.
And do it.
Yeah. And then just do a lot of that. So
every day.
Every day.
But then when you miss, even a week or a day or however long, you're going to replace that with grace and be like, but this is who I am. And because this is my identity, I'm not going to stray from it.
Yeah. I think that's great. So do that. Think about who you want to be in 2025. Tell us who that person is and let us encourage you along the way. We'll be sharing our stories too. So
why do we do this? Because we love you.